Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with allthingsbbq.com, and this is the Cider Brined Barbecue Turkey. But today we're gonna put a barbecue twist on your holiday bird with this Cider Brined Barbecue Turkey. But truth be told, this is a recipe that's good year-round. It just so happens the holidays are coming up. Now we're gonna start with a whole bird, prepare it spatchcock style, which means cutting out the backbone. It's gonna get a good long soak in an apple cider-based brine. And then after it has some time to dry out, we're gonna smoke it on the offset for that truly authentic wood-smoked barbecue experience. What we have here is about a 14-pound turkey, which is really in the sweet spot. It's what I like. I like to have a turkey that's between 12 and 16 pounds. I find that they cook quickly, they stay tender and juicy. That's kind of my preference, and I'll cook 2 of them in that range if I'm looking to feed a lot of people over cooking one really big one. The other thing to really look out for is how it's been treated. If you can find a fresh bird, awesome. I know that's not always an option, so if you're buying a frozen bird, just pay attention to the packaging. It's gonna tell you what they've done to it. It's gonna tell you how much stuff they've added to it in the form of some sort of solution or injection or whatever they're gonna call it. It'll say less than 5% whatever added to it, and that's ideal. The lower that number, the better. So I'm gonna go ahead and start from the bottom. This is where I'm most comfortable. Good pair of shears. You gotta have this to get this job done, because you're gonna do some cutting along these bones. I'm always trying to make sure I leave that little bit of oyster meat in there right along the backbone, because that's good stuff. So I'm just gonna hug this backbone all the way up to the neck and flip it around and go right back the other way. You may run into a little trouble spot right here, and if you do, what I like to do is come at it from the other direction. What you're hitting is that joint, and once you come at it from the other direction, you can actually see what you're doing and pop it out. Usually it's gonna find its spot where it wants to break open. So that right there, that's kind of step 1 of spatchcocking. This you can absolutely save, put it in your turkey stock to help make your gravy. From here, what I like to do is I'll take my shears right along the breastbone and give it just a little bit of a snip. Just right there at the edge, just enough to help break this open. You want to break that so that it all lays nice and flat. Now from here, it's kind of up to you how much trimming you want to do. As you can see, this side right here is kind of already opened up. I like to take all of this out. I'll take some of these ribs out just because there's less picking around bones to do later. And I'm just gonna take out any of this stuff that we weren't really gonna eat anyway. There's not much meat in here. It's mostly just connective tissues. You may find yourself this bone that's connected alongside the backbone. You can slide your knife right underneath it and take it out, or you can leave it in. To be honest, it doesn't hurt to leave it in. But again, it's something you don't have to worry about picking around later if you don't want to. And that also is going to be right there at that joint. It just depends on where exactly along the backbone you're cutting, how much of that is going to be left behind. You're not going to do it wrong. Don't worry about it, because you can always clean it up later or just cook it the way it is. It's going to be fine. I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same thing to the other side, making sure that I don't lose my skin here. Just this flap, this extra tissue that we want to get out. And then right here in between this thigh and the ribs, that's where we come in. Just kind of follow the contour of the breast right up to the edge. And again, sliding the knife underneath that bone to take it out. This is the one that will pop at the joint. We've cleaned all that up. We haven't lost any meat there, just taking out the bone. And now look at this, you really got all of this access to that meat underneath there. Now right up here, you're gonna find these bones that stick out. You may have already cut alongside and cut them out, and that's fine if you do. Again, this is a thing you can leave there if you want. It's not gonna hurt. But just to make things more accessible, I'll cut along the side of them peel them back. And then you may just need to use your knife to kind of cut it out because it also comes together at a joint down there. That pulls right out. You'll want to be careful as you're tugging on this thing. If you pull from too high, it's going to snap, and I've cut my finger on that enough times to know that it's not something you want to do. So get your leverage from down low. You can yank that right out. And then one last bit of trimming here I want to do is I'm going to take this wishbone out. This allows you to kind of just slice right through the breast without worrying about any bones. The wishbone is in a Y right here, meets down at the center. So I'll feel around for that hard spot, that wishbone, slip my knife right underneath, and then slide it right out to the edge. Then you can follow that down to the bottom and just twist that thing out. All right, now that bird is spatchcocked. Now with the bird all trimmed up, we're ready to mix up our apple cider brine. Now the bulk of this brine is going to be this apple cider base, and then we're gonna make this real easy. We're using the Sweetwater spice. This is a brine bath, it's smoked apple spice. So its base also is apple, but then it's got all that salt, brown sugar. It's all concentrated in here with some really great flavors, some chilies. You've got some warming spices, all things that go great both with the holidays and with barbecue and with apple juice or apple cider. So we're gonna mix this up, super simple. This is all a part of our Cider Brined Turkey kit, which you can check out at allthingsbbq.com, make it really easy for you. So we'll go ahead and start with a gallon of apple cider. And this recipe will actually do up to 1.5 gallons of liquid for these 2 jars. But 1 gallon should be just enough to cover this bird. We're gonna empty each one of these in here. And like I said, it's a concentrate, it's nice and thick, so that's why we're diluting it with the cider. And then I'm just gonna get a little bit of water in here because I wanna rinse all that out, utilize all of that liquid that's in there. And do the same thing with the second bottle. And give all that a whisk. So super easy, no need to heat it up. You can mix it right there, cool or at room temp, and the bird's ready to go in. We're gonna go in breast first, legs on top. The spatchcock makes this really easy. It actually fits into these spaces better with less brine. Just wanna make sure that we get this fully submerged for the brine time. And we'll lock this plate into place to keep it under the liquid. So we'll throw the lid on this. We're gonna stick this in the fridge. I go 1.5 hours per pound, so 14-pound bird, we're talking 21 hours. Now, lucky for us, yesterday I went ahead and put a bird in the brine. We're gonna pull that one out right now, move on to the next step. So pulling the brined bird out of the brine now. Been soaking since yesterday. I'm gonna go ahead and try and support those legs as I bring them out too so we don't tear anything. We do have a tear in the skin, but it's gonna be fine. That kind of stuff happens quite often. So what's going on now is if you wanted to, you could go ahead and smoke this bird the next day. But chances are you're never really gonna get this skin to be quite as nice as it could be unless you let it dry out first. So we're transferring this to a wire rack. I'm gonna take off as much of the moisture from this skin as I can. And we're just gonna let this thing sit open in the fridge overnight. One more day. I know it seems like a long process, a 3-day process for this smoked bird, but if you're gonna put the time into doing it right, this is one of those steps you don't wanna skip. And that's really pretty specific to these smoking temperatures. We're gonna be cooking this at 275 to 300, where the skin just doesn't render out as easily as it does up in like that 350 to 425 range. One of these little tricks I like to do to keep the wings off the breasts, just throw a toothpick in there to keep that open. I may be fooling myself that this is a really important thing to do, but it's something I've done for a while now just to keep it all the way open. So now into the fridge overnight. Luckily, once again, I've got one I started yesterday. It's been a 3-day process, but that means we can do this all in one day for you guys. I'm gonna pull that one out of the fridge, and that's what we're gonna smoke today. But before we actually get into seasoning that, let's fire up the grill. So today we're cooking on the Yoder Smoker's loaded Wichita offset smoker. We're gonna start off with a chimney full of our Kamado Joe big block charcoal. Just go ahead and get a little fire starter started underneath it, and we'll just light this up right here in the firebox. So this is going to be our coal bed. This is what's going to really give us that heat on the bottom. We're gonna start rolling logs over on top of it though, and we'll be smoking with a combination of applewood and pecan wood today, trying to stabilize that temperature between 275 and 300. So here's our bird with the skin that's already been dried out. As you can see, just not a lot of moisture on the surface, and that's great because, you know, cooking at these lower temperatures, we want that skin to still render. Even if it's not gonna get super crisp, it should be bite-through tender. At this point though, what we wanna do is we wanna go ahead and get this thing seasoned up. So we're gonna do that by putting our barbecue rub both underneath and on top of the skin. So just work in the hands underneath the skin, try not to tear anything. You're separating it, but you're not pulling it all the way away. So what that does is it gives you that gap now where you've got access right there to the flesh. Go ahead and take your barbecue rub. Today we're using one of my favorite barbecue rubs, the Plowboy's Yardbird. Go right underneath that skin. You can work from both directions. And then we're gonna do the same thing with these legs and thighs here. Just pulling that skin back, get some seasoning right there on the meat. And then putting it right back the way we found it. Then I'll go ahead and flip this over to make sure that we can get some seasoning on the back side. Pretty much anywhere you can see meat, you want to make sure that you get a little bit of seasoning on there. And we'll flip this back over. We'll go ahead and start getting the skin. So you can kind of see this even level, how it's all kind of on one level now. These breasts are pressed down, these thighs will kind of sit like this while it's cooking, and that's what makes this cook so evenly. And because it's all on one level instead of like all rolled up into one big ball as it was when we started, it's also going to cook quite a bit faster. Even low and slow on the offset. These wings, I'm going to go ahead and tuck them back. You just push them under, and that kind of holds them in a little bit tighter. Obviously they're smaller, so they cook quicker than everything else. That helps slow that down just a little bit. Any spots that I've messed up along the way, go ahead and touch that up. Now this is the pan that this was sitting in the refrigerator, so it's got some juices under it. I don't want to collect these juices necessarily. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. I've got a fresh sheet pan, and we are going to cook the bird on the sheet pan today for the sole purpose of being able to collect all the juices that drip out of it while it's cooking, because those juices are going to have a ton of flavor and great for moisturizing, especially that white meat in the end. So that charcoal's looking good. We're going to go ahead and dump this out right along the back side of our firebox. We're going to keep that fire isolated on the back half of our firebox so that we can burn it really hot. We'll go ahead and put a little pecan and a little bit of apple in there. And then we're gonna have one more that we're gonna keep right up front to keep hot. That way when we roll it over later, it just instantly ignites. So this way we can control the airflow, burn a hot fire, get a clean smoke the entire cook. Now, it hasn't taken long, but our grill has come up to temperature. We're reading 300 at the right side, 250 on the left, and it's a little too hot to hold your hand on there long, so we're ready to put this bird on. We're just gonna go right here, dead center of the smoker. And I'm gonna go ahead and throw our meter plus in here so we can keep track of the temperature. I'm aiming for the deepest part of the breast meat. And this will let us know what's going on temperature-wise, both inside the bird and in the pit. Well, this is what 2 hours into our cook looks like. We're getting some nice browning on the bird. Looking at about 130 on the internal right now. I'm gonna go ahead and spin this around, just make sure that it's kind of browning evenly. I imagine we've got another hour or so left. And while we're at it, we'll go ahead and feed the fire. So we'll go ahead and put another log over here, keeping that fire small and hot. Another one to warm up. And then something I like to do throughout a cook, add a couple chunks of lump, just to help keep that coal bed going. Well, the turkey's been on for almost 5 hours now. Come up to temp 155 in the deepest part of the breast. It's gonna continue to cook a little bit with carryover cooking once we pull it off. So let's go ahead and get this thing off the smoker. So we can go ahead and take our thermometer out now. Man, you can see just a nice crispy skin there, even at that lower temperature. Soaked up lots of smoke during our almost 5 hour cook. This just needs some time to rest for that temperature to continue coming up and all those juices to redistribute throughout the meat. So I'm gonna throw this into our Cambro. At home, you could put it into a cooler. While the turkey is resting, we're gonna put together a really simple pomegranate barbecue sauce for dipping our turkey into. So this is super easy. We're gonna take 1 cup of pomegranate juice, which has got this great flavor to it that actually reminds me a lot of cranberry in this application, which I was kind of surprised about when I first tested this recipe. A couple years back, we did something pretty similar with a cranberry barbecue sauce, and the pomegranate's fantastic as well. Now, our barbecue sauce that we're adding is the Firebug Mild. So it is a mild, fruity barbecue sauce that's also got some blackberries and raspberries in it, but it's also got a nice little black pepper kick to it. So we're gonna combine these two things, the sweetness of the barbecue sauce, the tartness of the pomegranate juice, and just reduce this down to kind of a thicker consistency that we can then dip the turkey into. All right, the bird is rested. The sauce is reducing. So I'm gonna go ahead and start to break this down. And one of the great things about the spatchcock method is that leg and thigh comes off real easy. And you want to separate the two of those. You're just going to go right in that crease in between the two of them. Pop that open. See that ball joint right there? You're going to go right in between. So now you've got your leg, which you can serve just by itself. And then this dark meat, oh, that looks good. This stuff will just shred apart. And boy, look at the juice already. That's looking beautiful. When you get this stuff cooking at that same rate as the breast, it's going to end up cooking to a higher temperature, which is ideal for the dark meat. You want this stuff at 175 or higher, while that breast finishes up more around 160, 165. That's when this stuff gets really velvety. So we're just going to shred up some of this dark meat here before we move on to the white meat. Man, the smoke aroma coming off of this is fantastic. There's a slight sweetness to it as well, which has got to be that apple cider base, as well as our brine. Now for the breast, you can kind of come in here and divide these by 2, and you can carve that right out of there, just going right along the side of the breastbone in the middle. Just follow it down along what was the rib cage. We'll cut that off of the wing. And there you have your white meat. And we can get some really nice slices out of this here. Now we've carved this off the breast to slice it, but you also could just slice it right off of the body. Let's take a look here real quick before we go back. Just glistening with juice. That's what you're looking for. You want that white meat to be plenty juicy. I gotta get a bite. Oh yeah. Smoke for days. Plenty of salt to it. That's even the interior. I'm not getting to the exterior yet where all that flavor and rub is on the outside. But that salt's really penetrated during that brine time. Flavor throughout. But you can actually take some of those juices that you've collected from the pan and go ahead and brush that right on top. Lots of flavor in there. Go ahead and take the other half of this bird apart. Pretty much just the skin that's keeping that leg and thigh holding on. Go ahead and cut around this wing here. So that wing will separate out, and then what you've got here is your breast. And since we've already removed that wishbone, you can actually slice right down on the breast through the front. And then just take those pieces out. Again, just glistening with juice. I don't want to squeeze that too much and lose all that. I'm gonna pour off some of this sauce now that it's reduced down. Kind of back down to almost like barbecue sauce consistency. And this is my favorite part, this dark meat right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and load it up with some of that sauce and get a taste. Oh yeah. So the sauce, I mean, that's the cherry on top. The smoked turkey's fantastic. We put a lot of time into this bird, and it's paid off for sure. The flavor's fantastic, so smoky from the stick burner, but that sauce, that just goes the extra mile. And it, you know, takes this barbecue thing and also ties in kind of the fall, autumn holiday thing with the pomegranate. Fantastic flavors. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out allthingsbbq.com for all the products featured in today's video, including that turkey kit. If you enjoyed the recipe, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comment section down below, and let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to allthingsbbq.com/thesauce. All things barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.